The broadcast is live.
We are live. All right. Welcome to the Cavern of Chaos. And as you can tell, we're actually in the cavern now.
Yeah, it's dark.
Very dark. Yeah. We usually do this in the morning. And for you guys on the repeat, it's 8 o'clock on a Friday night.
My beautiful morning light is gone. This fluorescent light is washing out my skin. Oh, my goodness. I'm hideous.
Yeah. This place is a rental where I put in a real light. You know.
These are my work lights on my, because I'm on my drawing table here, and I've got two work lights on either side. I turn off the overhead fluorescent because that just is madness when you turn it on.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, it cracks me up because about every room in this house has really good lighting, except for the room that I got to put my stuff in when we moved here. And I guess it's mood lighting because I guess this was supposed to be a dining room. I don't know what the deal is. I'm like, you know. It's not even a real romantic light. It's kind of yellowish, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's 1979 in a trailer, you know.
I need the fluorescent light filter that you screw onto a camera and
to pull and draw the vitamin D out of you. Yeah.
A cooling. Is it a warming filter? Must be a warming filter because this light is cool. Because back in the film camera days, if you were shooting under fluorescent light, you had to put on a cooling filter screwed on your camera to compensate for the fluorescent light. That's what I need. They should have those built into these things, but they don't. They're busy making sparkles and bunny ears.
Now that we're doing this, it's dawning on me. YouTube's got a lot of competition on Facebook. It cracks me up. What we've been doing on Facebook for years and stuff, it cracks me up because I tried to watch this awful Saturday Night Live where everybody was shooting on a camera like this, houses and stuff. And it felt like everybody was doing YouTube videos. And I'm like, you guys are about 12 years behind the times. I saw better stuff on YouTube. So you can get monetized on YouTube, of course, and all this stuff. But these people are getting on Facebook. Kevin Kenny from Driving and Crying, who puts on great little folksy shows, if you remember that, man. Peter Laird is live, and there's been like all kinds of these little rock stars and stuff come on live, and they're like asking people to go to their PayPal account and donate. And I'm just sitting here like, if you just go to YouTube, you know, you could get.
I just noticed Facebook started. I guess they want to compete with Zoom and stuff like that too. They just started their video rooms today.
Yeah,
just popped up where you set up your video room and invite people in. I haven't done it, but
yeah. Because I just realized my phone went off Kevin Kenny. I was going to watch his second concert for America, which are actually pretty good. I'm a big Driving and Crying fan, and I love that nobody remembers them. But you can play a little bit of a song, and Small be like, "Oh yeah," you know. And I'm like, "You're bullshitting me."
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, they got a song called "Watch Me Go Blank." I got the album over here. Well, there we go. But anyway, everybody knows them for Fly Me Courageous. I knew them from '88. They hang out with REM and stuff. He's friends with Peter Buck. So,
okay.
All right. Well, okay, we got Kevin Kelly here. Toki Deathhammer is right there. I got a feeling Toki Deathhammer has hit the bell, as everybody should, to get the alert. You got to play with the bell. Get the drop.
Otherwise, what you'd think we're coming on tomorrow, but
I know. Oh man, there's going to be there's going to be people able to wake up at their convenience and watch it at their time, you know, because I think they get up.
They're going to go, "Oh, I missed the live show."
So hit the bell, let the drop menu come down when you subscribe, and hit all, So
I actually got some new comics this week.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're not new, but. Because I was watching the cartoonist kayfabe interview with Howard Chaykin, I decided to go get the 5 issues of Hey Kids comics.
Nice.
Which I've been buying Howard Chaykin's work for about the last 10 years. I kind of stopped buying it when he was like in the 80s and 90s when he was doing all DC and sometimes Marvel stuff. But I started buying it again with, I think, Black Kiss 2 when he started doing Image stuff, and I've been buying it. But somehow I missed out on this. And it's all about, you'll like this, it's all about comics history.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely jump on that.
It's about comics history, and they have like versions of, there's versions of like Siegel and Schuster, versions of Jack Kirby, versions of Rob Liefeld, and it switches between like the 40s, the 60s, and the 90s.
That's my stuff right there. Yeah.
So it's good stuff. I haven't read these. I actually read them digitally because I somehow missed out on it when it was coming out. I only got issue 5, but then I was like, you know what? I want to go on eBay and see if they're available. And the one thing about collecting indie comics that drives me bonkers is I hate when I see like whatever series I bought, Usagi Yojimbo. And someone goes, "Ooh, I just got 50 issues of Usagi Yojimbo for $1 a piece." And I'm like, I paid full price for them all. And like I paid like $15 shipped for these 5, which makes them $3 a piece. And they're like, there'd be $4. So, I worked out for me this time, but I'm always like, oh man, it always drives me crazy when I see someone get, I got all of East of West for $50. And I'm like, I paid $4 a piece for all of East of West.
Well, I think it was around 1990 I had enough. There's a year, 90 or 91, where comics went from 75 cents to $1, $1.25, $1.50, $1.75, $1.95. And that's when I started doing the hustling. And I'm serious, man. I bet you anything if I bought 10 comics full price over the next 25 years after that, I'd be surprised. Okay. I had it. I was like, no, that was a big deal back then. I'm going to go ahead and tell you,
But it's a little bit of a salve that you couldn't find most of the comics I buy. I mean, when someone says I found this whole run of this, that's actually fairly rare because it's like you can't find. I was just in my video this week of showing what comics I got. I was I told you I was reading Rex Mundi.
Yeah.
And I was I finished volume 1, I pulled out volume 2 to read, and as I was going through, as I was flipping through them, issue 3 is missing. And I'm just like, I checked my database, should be there, which means it's somewhere in here, but if it's misfiled, it may as well be gone. I'm not going to find it till so I decided to look at the comic series on either side of it in case somehow it got misfiled and it wasn't misfiled. But as I'm looking through the series I'm like, I forgot this series existed. I forgot. Look at that. I want to reread this one. I forgot this one existed. I forgot it. So it's like all that stuff you probably can, you'll either never know it existed or you'll never find it. So I'm glad I got it.
Yeah.
Even though when I see people bet big runs of it for cheap, I go,
Well, like I said, I've got the CLZ app, the collector's app, and I'm going through my books, and I'm finding odd books missing that are in my old database that I can actually see on my computer, but it's corrupted anywhere else. And it's odd books. Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew number 13 missing. Stuff like that. I mean, just odd, random stuff. It's been boxed up for years, not messed around.
Get missing.
Captain Carrot. Captain Carrot's an underrated book. It's upsetting. So, let me show you a book I got off of eBay since you brought that up.
Hey, Mind the Comics, how you doing?
But I'm finding going through all my comics again. I mean, I'm up to about 3,000 comics and it hasn't put a dent, but I'm starting to find that I'm ready to do a second purge, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to read this. But I've been looking for this for years. It's Tim Truman signed Jonah Hex number 1. That completely disappeared and it was like smashed. I don't know what it was in between like Captain Carrot books. So it's gone, but this sprouted. But these hardbacks are finally starting to get kind of cheap on eBay. I only want 2 of them. This collects the first comics or maybe PC comics, Roy Thomas stuff of Elric back in the day. I'm going to get the first one, and I'm wanting the last one of Stormbringer. I've got so many little things of Weird of the White Wolf and all the other books and stuff that I'm like, I just want those 2 in hardback. Those are the 2 I always go back to.
I just, as I was looking for that Rex Mundi, I stumbled onto my Craig Russell. You know what it is? I have I have my own. Everybody has their kind of own system for storing the comics.
Yeah.
And one part of the system that I stole from Bob Wyachek
Oh.
was that I was over his house once and I saw he has like one section of his collection that is just the artists. Kind of the only reason he has that. So if he needs to find a sample of Neil Adams, it's right over here in the Neil Adams section.
Right on. Yeah.
So I made a section of my one big wall of my collection just for the art. Like the only reason I have this comic is for the artist, and like I put them in there and that section. And like Craig Russell, I think has his own section. I'm not even sure, but I ran across like the P. Craig Russell opera and ring cycle set. I had them all together under like I forget what. And I was like, you know what? I have to put these in the Craig Russell section. That way I know they're there and can find them because I'd forgotten they existed over in the other alphabetical section.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I went back and forth for years trying to get some kind of system going, and I held on to the artist section forever, and it was messing everything up. Now, you were talking about Howard Chaykin. I don't know if this is going to show up back here, but that's a promotional poster from the 90s for Howard Chaykin and Dan Barrington doing Thrill Killer, where it's like a Batman story set in like 61 when you still had beatniks, and the Rat Pack was hot, and Van Dyke's like I used to wear was there. But I also found a 3-issue series called Twilight, where Howard Chaykin and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez took all the 50s DC space characters and did the whole grim and gritty thing with them. And it's like fantastic. Tommy Tomorrow is like this megalomaniac, blonde-haired Aryan dude is trying to find immortality. And then like one of the characters who had a robot sidekick, he's addicted to sex with robots. You know what I'm like? That's why I kind of pick and choose with Howard. Sometimes he just takes me places where I'm just sort of like, man, come on, man.
Those are the places I like.
I got to be in the mood. I got to be in the mood, man. I like my smut a little bit tasteful, maybe
take me out of my comfort zone. I'm okay with that when I'm reading Howard Chaykin. That's what he's there for.
Vance Copley artist. It's a new name to me. First P. Craig Russell book I read was Night Music. Great artist. Not familiar with that one.
That was in that section I was talking about that I have to move. Like I said, I already had a Craig Russell section, but it wasn't labeled Craig Russell, and it was in with I think Elric or something or Stormbringer, because one day I was like organized and like his like that one, like Night Music, all his opera adaptations are like 1, 2, maybe 3 issues. So I'm like, and they were all kind of spread out alphabetically. So I'm like, I may as well put these all in one under, Craig Russell. So I'm like, now that I have, but I did that years before I had the artist section. So now I'm like, I'm going to have to move that to the artist section.
I've looked up when I've gone to Baltimore Con. I've gotten, he's been nice enough to sign a ton of stuff for me, and he's really nice. And I follow him on Facebook. I'll have to look up that Night Music. The only opera adaptation I have is, what's it called? The Ring of Nyberg. It was Roy Thomas.
The Ring of the Nibelung.
Thank you. That German.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's how I say it.
Yeah. Well, my pronunciations of comic book art writers and artists' names so bad that some of my buddies actually found an old Stan Soapbox thing that's got everybody's name pronounced the correct way. And there's 3 of them where I'm like, I was right. I was right,
And I made another video this week looking at one of my older artist editions that I got. I haven't got an artist edition in a while, but when they first came out, I got a bunch of them back in 2013, I think it was, which I think was before I was making videos. And occasionally I do a taking a look video where I go through an artist edition or whatever. And I find the artist editions are like they're my evergreens, because people go back and look at them whenever they decide they want to see a David Mazzucchelli artist edition. They search for it and go watch my video or someone else's. But I just did one of which I hadn't looked at. It's amazing how these things can just sit around and get unlooked at. The John Romita Spider-Man Artist Edition Volume 2. Wow, is that nice?
I'd say so, man. John Romita is one of those guys, when I see his comic book, I see a guy who did romance books in the 50s, And that's what you're really reading when you're reading the Spider-Man he did. I mean, and there's not a lot of people that appreciate that. And I don't know if I'm right, but his art was so crisp, you know what I mean, for that era that it felt like a romance book when I read it.
What it is too is I haven't looked at John Romita's work in so long. I forget how good he was. Because he wasn't. Because to me, there's Steve Ditko Spider-Man, and there's everything else.
Yeah.
And John Romita, like I grew up in the late 70s, so I started with like Ross Andru Spider-Man, so Spider-Man was just another kind of middle of the road Marvel comic to me. And like John Romita was kind of the old artist in Marvel Tales, and I had not even seen Ditko yet, so I kind of liked the John Romita stuff, but it still looked very 60s to me as a kid. Now when I look at it, I'm like, wow, like this. Like I remember the reason I got Volume 2 and not Volume 1 was that in Volume 2 is mostly John Romita inking his own work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really, really nice. It is like even nicer than I remember. For some reason, I like, wow, I forgot how nice John Romita's art is in this.
Well, it's really, I mean, odd. I never really thought about it, but like growing up, we talked a few weeks ago how like, you know, Ditko was the first Spider-Man I saw stuff and those little pocketbooks and stuff. Right?
Yeah, I never saw those till later on.
Right.
I know.
So I saw those when they came out because my stepdad was getting them. They were in the house, right? But when it came to John Romita stuff, the death of Stacy, not Gwen Stacy, her dad.
Her dad, right.
Okay, that was probably one of the first John Romita books I read of it. So I kind of went backwards from there. You know,
I remember reading that in Marvel Tales.
Yeah. And this is before I was really worried about the numerical order of books. I just wanted the books, and I would put them in order if I had them. No big deal, right? But the thing about it is Ditko's style. When Ditko was on it, I always felt like Ditko was being a little bit autobiographical with Peter. Peter was one of us. Romita comes on there, and I don't know if it was Stanley or, I mean, the whole thing just got a whole different mood. That's why I get what you're saying, Ditko and then everybody else. But all of a sudden, it felt like Peter was actually in college and having girl problems. I mean, the Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane stuff, or Mary Jane, stuff is the one that like blew me away. That was, you know, I'm sitting there watching Peter trying to ask one of them out, saying, "Hey, you want to split a popsicle in the park?" Or he's sitting there and he's watching Gwen Stacy dance. You can almost hear the music in her go-go boots and mini skirt and stuff.
Well, that's also the difference between Ditko plotting and then Romita was plotting those books.
Yeah. So Peter actually grew up. It went from a high school kid to, so to me, it's two different books.
John Romita has also said in interviews for the first few 6 issues, he was trying to kind of imitate Ditko a little, keep his style close to Ditko, because he thought Ditko was coming back.
Gotcha. Well, you look at that first cover he did with the Green Goblin, Dragon Spidey, all that stuff. That looks, I mean, I had to look twice at it when I was a kid trying to figure out who it was, Yeah. I'm older now and it's kind of obvious, I guess. But at the time I was like, is that a Ditko or not? So I believe that. Right. But
I actually knew Ross Andru's Spider-Man first.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just, that was kind of a middle of the road, even though Spider-Man was, still big in the late 70s. He was one of the, Marvel's main stars. To me, reading those Ross Andru issues, I remember being a kid going, what's so special about Spider-Man? I mean, it's just another superhero. And then I read the Ditko stuff and was like, I get it now. I know why.
Well, you're taking me back, and it goes back to one of those Treasury editions, and I think I have the Marvel 2-in-1 or something. But for a while there, Gil Kane's Spider-Man was my Spider-Man for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he did some Marvel 2-in-1s. He did all kinds of covers, but he did this fantastic story with Khazar and Stegron. Khazar, however you want to do it, and Stegron and stuff. And it was I've looked up and found the Marvel 2-in-1s. I think it was like 9 and 10. I mean, we're going old school. And then he threw in Doctor Strange in there, and I'm reading this Marvel Treasury edition as a little kid. So it's like, and for a while there, I mean, I didn't know who Gil Kane was, but I could he's one of the first artists, like right up there with Kirby. I could recognize his style. It's that dude. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's that dude. I'm told I discovered style earlier than most when I've been talking to friends, because like I said, I consider my comic book collecting to have started with Hulk 200 when I was about 9. I had comics before then.
But I had Hulk 200, and my neighbor had Hulk 201, 202, and 203. And I was like, there's numbers on them? They go in a row? So I traded them like almost all the comics I had for those 3 issues. And then I was like, oh, then I'm like, I got a collection now. Another thing with issue, and those were Sal Buscema issues.
Yeah.
With issue 204, Herb Trimpe did a fill-in issue. And I can remember getting 204 and going, no, 9-year-old me, I may have been just turned 10. I don't know, going, why does the Hulk not look right? And, with my 10-year-old investigating skills, I discovered there was a credit box that told you the people, and I was like, oh, 2 different guys drew it. From then on in, I was very aware of who drew what.
I still have the Hulk 200 that was in my house, and it's coverless, so I know what you're talking about. And I mean, I don't know who all goes that far back that's watching this and stuff, those late 70s and early 70s, man. But you had a Dave Cockrum cover around that time where he's inside the mouth of a warthog.
Oh yeah,
Jarella at his feet. He goes back to Jarella's world. I mean, the Hulk from day one, it wasn't so much I felt like I discovered the Hulk and thought he was cool. It was like he was always there and he's cool. I mean, the Hulk and Hulk was just always there. It felt like
a Bernie Wrightson Man Thing cover on
that's the next thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I have that. I found that about 3 or 4 years ago, finally, and I was looking around like, "Are you serious? This isn't a dollar box." I mean, it was hard for me to keep a poker face. I didn't know if it was worth anything or not, but I found it, and I was like,
"It's funny because I had still have them on my shelf." Like I said, I consider my collection had started with 200, and then I bought everything forward. But somewhere within that first year, I don't even know where I got issues 190 to 199. So they were kind of always part of the collection. I very quickly I must have bought them from someone in the neighborhood. But it was they were kind of the old Hulk issues. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah, back in 2010, I got rid of some Silver Age books because of the financial struggle of the day. You know what I mean? And the earliest Hulk issue that I remember us having in the house was Hulk 108 or 118 or something. It had Rhino on the cover and Sam Jones, the forgotten sidekick.
Oh, yeah.
And then I recently, it took me forever to find it, but I found the Harlan Ellison issue of where this first appearance of Jarella, probably in the 140s. Those the Herb Trimpe stuff, that is a lot of people's Hulk. But my guy
rhymes with Shrimpy.
Is it
from that bullpen pronunciation guide?
Yeah,
rhymes with
Shrimpy. I mean, I couldn't get over the love people have for Herb Trimpe. I mean, it just blew my mind. I was like,
he was. Sal Buscema was my Hulk guy, but for a lot of people, he was their Hulk guy. And also that Rhino cover that I don't think I ever owned it, but I think it's Hulk 109.
Somewhere around there.
With the Hulk slumped over on the ground and the Rhino charging at him from behind. That's a really good cover.
Yeah, I had that for years, and I would just stare at it. To me, that was like the Hulk. That's the era of Hulk I was introduced. Around the same time, Lou Ferrigno was popping up on TV, painted up, Okay.
And that's earlier than that. That must have been a back issue for you.
Well, it was my dad's. Those were my stepdad's. Right. Yeah, those weren't my books, but I mean, I'm the one I carried them for decades longer than he did, so they're mine, But
my parents didn't have comic books; they just had regular books.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think. I lost the train of thought there. I had something going, but that issue 200, that was one of my favorite Hulk stories forever.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to find the guy. I think it's Ernie Kahn. My Hulk, if we're going to talk about Ernie Chan. Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys. I'm just letting everybody know I haven't slept in 2 nights, and Jared is nice enough to not humiliate me.
Just getting you to pronounce everybody's name correct. Ernie Chan was a nice guy, too. He used to hang out in the Marvel bullpen in the early 90s before he moved out to California and became a video game concept artist. Very nice guy. I think he died around 2010.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah, I don't think he's alive anymore. Maybe I can't remember when he died, but he was a really nice guy.
Let's see if it'll show up, but this was my Hulk. Come on.
Okay.
There was something about the way that Ernie Chan did the hair, and I don't know. There's just a thickness to him. And that was my hope forever. You know,
all that shading and rim lighting makes him big. Where did mine?
I just realized I could have looked it up on my computer and shared the screen, but you know.
Ah, well.
You know, we're old school around here. We've been doing this since 2010. So, what do we got here? Mr. Vance here. Huh?
Didn't Ernie Chan do the first Star Wars comic? No, that was Howard Chaykin.
Everything's coming back to Chaykin.
Howard Chaykin, who did this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not bitter.
Yeah, we had a show. It's amazing how much Howard Chaykin's popping up on this, man. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how he hates being remembered as the Star Wars guy, considering that was over 40 years ago, you know.
Well, he was also just saying in the interview, because the Star Wars comic was right before they instituted royalties. And if he had gotten royalties on that Star Wars comic, he would have made a whole lot of money, because that sold millions and millions and millions of copies.
Yeah.
Instead, he got nothing. And he's like, I'm not bitter. Not at all.
Well, you know, it's stories like that where you're like, did Jack Kirby really say comic books will break your heart? You know, I don't know. I'm so sick of hearing that. Oh, man. That was some good talk there, man. But I don't know. We're either going to have to change the title of this and just keep talking off the hip, or we can bring up Planetary again. You know.
Let's see what else we got to talk about first, huh?
Yeah, no problem, man.
We'll finish Planetary when you're more awake.
Oh, okay. Hey, as long as it's not painful, I'm entertaining, man. We're all right.
Yeah, but I was just discussing Howard Chaykin a little bit, because, like I said, I made a video where I showed these off, and Sleepy Reader was saying something about he didn't like the last couple of Howard Chaykin series or something like that, and I said Howard Chaykin, he was even saying, like, in that interview, he's like, my stuff doesn't sell. He's like, you know, people, I'm no fan favorite. People don't like my stuff. And I think Howard Chaykin is kind of he's an outlier, and he's ahead of the curve and taste of people. But like you said before, he takes you to places you don't want to go. Yeah. I think modern comics have more in common with American Flag and Black Kiss from the 80s, Howard Chaykin's American Flag and Black Kiss, than they do with any other comics from the 80s, because the sophistication he brought, like he was ahead of the curve in sort of sophisticated adult storytelling, and it has taken this long for the tastes and other comics to even catch up a little. Yeah, I mean, Saga kind of has sexuality out in the open in it, but very few others do. But there's more sexuality in comics now. Like, they've reached the level of American Flag sexuality, where it was kind of just under the surface, but not the level of Black Kiss, where it was much more blatant, except for a few things.
Yeah, Howard Chaykin comes off to me like, don't blow smoke up my butt and I won't blow it up yours.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and that kind of comes through in this comics. I got some sci-fi stuff he did independently, like this little graphic novel, whoever put it out and stuff. Right. Howard Chaykin's always popped up. But the one thing that's really killed me, and I know it's a lot of people over the last couple of years that have gotten into comics and look at his stuff. Maybe you've heard this or not. But, I mean, it really I really have to kind of bite my lip real hard, if not leave the room, when people are like, this guy is a Frank Miller ripoff. And I'm just sort of like, what? I don't even know how you get on that train to get to that destination. You know, I'm just sort of like, and you know, and that's so. I think Howard Chaykin's been around for so long. I don't think people know the American Flag stuff, the sword and sorcery stuff he did in the 70s, and all that stuff, and the Black Kiss stuff. Definitely, a lot of people don't get references to that, like in that John Byrne She-Hulk, where he had a page that was a joke to it. You know, with the answer machine and stuff. So Howard Chaykin, I think a lot of people need to really kind of back up and check out some of his stuff and then, throw it out there a little bit. Just my opinion.
What was that? American Dreams? Was that the last series he did before this one? That one was rough.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read that one at all.
No, I heard more about the controversy with it than the book. I don't think a lot of people carried the book because of that. I don't know. It never ran across. It never came to my doorstep,
Well, like he even said that he's like, my stuff doesn't. He's like, don't go thinking my stuff sells. It doesn't. People don't like my stuff. And I think people didn't like that. I think that's one Sleepy Reader didn't like too, because it's just that one was. I mean, he was taking all these characters who were real assholes, and they're from different walks of life, and everybody was just betraying everybody, and it was very, and it was kind of political, and just no one came across well with his look at their politics. They were just all mercenary.
Yeah.
And it was a rough one.
There's not a lot of I don't think there's a lot of people that can do a critical look at a book and take it for the book and talk about what's being done in there.
I have to go back and reread it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to admit, the last 4 or 5 years, you mention anything and everybody decides to put you on one side or the other, and only one side's right if you're not careful, So that might have been some timing with Chaikin, or I think he may have known exactly what he was doing because we're talking about him. Everybody started talking about him again. I don't know.
No, he didn't know exactly what he's doing. He can't help it.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's what I like about doing this show with you, man. I'm like, you're one of the few people I can be like, no problem. Gotcha.
Yeah, he's just him. It's like there's not that kind of plan, I don't think, to get attention with him. He's just him.
He is one of those guys that have been around for so long and done his indie stuff, but that I've always wondered how he's able to pay the bills. Like, I mean, I've never
TV writing. That's what he said. TV writing.
TV writing. I can't believe
he actually explained for the 80s and 90s he was doing TV writing. Because he was talking about in his interview how he gets, because he hires everyone to do the like he hires an editor because it's an image comic. There's no editor. He hires an editor. He hires the colorist. He hires the letterer. So like he said, the reason I went and got these too, because he said he's working on issue 10 of these now, and I don't think any of them have come out. Like these 5 have come out, and I don't think anything since. So I'm like, when are the other 5 coming out? I'll have to put it on make sure it's on my pull list. But he said he's like he said he's in the Writers Guild from TV writing, so he gets a pension, and he's on Social Security.
Wow. That's wild.
He's like I'm an old fuck.
It blows my mind because I could sit here and tell you about Mike Plug, what he's worked on in Hollywood, and Jim Steranka, what he's worked on. I could tell you the stuff J. Michael Straczynski is the stuff. I mean, I could name off a lot of the stuff. Howard Chaikin has never come across to me with that news. He was a TV writer.
Yeah, he was. I don't know what he's written.
I think, and I'll take my word on it, but the 1990 Flash episode series, it seems like he wrote an episode. That's the only thing I might be ringing a bell. And I don't know if I still have that or not.
So that's how he's getting his comics done, is his pension and his Social Security, and he pays everyone and maybe makes some money on it.
Wow. I'm pretty sure he grew up in New York, and he reminds me of the old school New York that I don't think a lot of New Yorkers even remember if they were born in the 90s or something. So yeah, he's when I watch him, I'm not saying he makes me nervous and stuff, but I'm just sort of like, I'm fascinated with what you're saying, man, but that tone kills me. I'm like, the kayfabe interview is good because it was mostly just Howard Chaikin talking. Yeah, that's why that's so good. I said, it was about 3 years ago. I met him at a con, and I was hanging out with Bob Wyachek. Bob's like, "Oh, you want to go to the con?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll go down and hang out for it." It's like when I go to a con, it's a social event. I talk to people I know in the industry, and I'd never met Howard Chaikin before. Yeah, but he was sitting next to Bob, so I got to hang out and talk with him all day, and I had fun. He was very amused. I got to teach him what Prison Pretty was. If you don't know what Prison Pretty is, this is it.
This once again, I had never heard the term "prison pretty" before the early '90s. Once again, we're hanging out in the Marvel bullpen.
Right on.
And me and the guys, we're talking, and I don't know. There must have been some new woman or some woman working there, and someone said, "Oh, she's nice looking," and my friend Tom was, no, she's not. She's prison pretty. We went, what? She's like, when you're in here, you're stuck in a building all day. All you got is the people you work with. That's a different rating scale. When you're out in the street and someone's pretty, they're pretty. And prison pretty is they're only pretty because they're in here with this limited number of people. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh man, we're going
she
back.
wasn't street pretty. She was just prison pretty.
I wonder if everybody knows what Coyote Ugly is. I wonder if that's still a thing.
Matthew Roscoe just came back from comic trading with a friend and got a sweet haul of 2000 OD. Oh, 2000 AD. All right.
Strodium Dog and Judge Dredd. Oh man, I'll tell you what, I love the Judge Dredd, man. I mean, it's really taken over for a while. But when I got some Strodium Dog, and actually the box is behind me over here. The first time I got a hold of some Strodium Dog, I knew it had the same creator as Judge Dredd. I knew I could just tell a few little things by reading the credits. But I did a video where I stated, I'm like, I don't get this. This is just a carbon copy of Judge Dredd, or I don't think I said ripoff. Holy crap. That is the first time I had like a wave of people coming to me. And I admitted I was wrong. They made their case. I was outnumbered, but there was still some facts in there. And I'm like, you're right. Then I started reading some more, and it was like, it really veered off. I'm like, okay, I get it.
It's true. Yeah, I've never read much of that 2000 AD stuff. I always kind of meant to, but never have. Besides Judge Dredd.
It doesn't stick with me. I mean, I've got quite a bit of it over here. I found a whole freaking short box of 2000 AD and the Eagle miniseries and stuff for like $10.
It's weekly, right? So those issues build up.
Yeah. And then I got the Alan Moore stuff that he did with it in these. I'm sure most of them were reprints, and a little bit of Warrior magazine. They don't stick with me, man, but man, they get deep. And I didn't quite understand how political these books were, considering I didn't live in England. So I saw this 2000 AD documentary on Amazon Prime back in the fall. And I was like, holy cow. I knew it came from the punk era, the punk roots and stuff, but they're saying some stuff in there and they get downright evil. Pretty sure there's some atheists writing some stories.
Working out their religious issues.
Yeah, is it Pat Mills? Kevin O'Neill? Which one's the artist? Kevin O'Neill? Pat Mills?
Kevin O'Neill is an artist. Pat Mills?
Pat Mills is the writer.
Kevin O'Neill's the one who drew Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah, Kevin O'Neill, he had a lot of stuff in there, man. A lot of these guys that went to Vertigo and all that stuff in the 90s and stuff, they got pulled from 2000 AD. Right. And so they just got
Mills draw Nemesis or something like that.
That might be the series I'm trying to think about. I'm trying to keep from grabbing this short box over here and digging through it and flying them around. But yeah.
Stuff all around.
Yeah. Some of that stuff is just, I mean, you can tell they just kind of churned it out and called it in to make a deadline. And some of the stuff is brilliant. The Judge Dredd stuff is the most solid stuff, in my opinion.
Gaze into the face of fear. Gaze into the fist of dread. That's the panel everybody loves.
Along with a few issues of Preacher and ABC Warriors. And I haven't read a lot of the ABC Warriors, but it took me a while to come. I had Preacher number 1, 2, or 3 times.
Huh. That never went up in price because of the TV show.
Nah, it did before. It jumped up. The first issue jumped up to around $300. I saw it going for. When I would get it, I'd sell it for $30. I mean, I found it 4 or 5 times. I don't know. Oh, here we go. Gore Vidal. Mills is the rider on a bike ride.
I've been trying to fix my bike all day. Well, part of the afternoon, really. Not all day. Got it done.
Here's a little bit of an underrated series that you can get for cheap. John Ostrander's Wasteland. Weird little stories, but good.
Was that the anthology from... Yeah, that had some good stuff.
Yeah, it had... Yeah, the advertisement in the 80s for it was an hourglass full of water with a fish on top and the water draining to the bottom.
What was the name of that? Del Close. That was the name of the writer who did a bunch of stories in that. I liked his stuff.
Yeah, that and then they did a mini series of Strange Adventures in the 90s that had an anthology feel to it, and that was actually really good. But I put Wasteland before it.
Yeah. Mine the Comic says he looked up Chaykin on IMDb.
Earth Final Conflict. Are you kidding me?
97 to 2002. Okay.
I freaking avoided that like the plague along with Xena and Hercules.
I never watched Earth Final Conflict or Hercules or Xena. But I did watch, what was that one that he starred, the sci-fi one he starred in? Andromeda. I liked that one. That Kevin Sorbo starred in after Hercules.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. Yeah, I saw a few. I lasted about 2 or 3. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, is this Star Trek or not? And it's in the far future. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. You had Earth Final Conflict come out, which was a Gene Roddenberry thing. And then you had this Andromeda come out, and I couldn't figure out where it fit in. I'm like, I couldn't figure out if it was Star Trek or not. So I was out.
I think Earth Final Conflict was one my friend and I always used to say, based on an idea that Gene Roddenberry jotted down on a napkin one evening.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know I had my shows, and they're probably in here, and I can't really think of them. But I was a Toxic Avenger guy. I was a Tromaville dude. Oh. And when you got Tromaville setting that standard, there's it's really hard to find something that keeps you as interested as that one. And those are horrible movies, but they're so damn funny. I mean, unintentionally, Have
you ever liked any adaptations in comics? Any series based on any comic series based on a TV series? Any adaptations?
I'm sure I have.
I've once heard it described thusly, and I think I agree with this. You buy an adaptation or a continuation in a comic book form because you want more of the original thing. Mm-hmm. But it's never more of the original thing.
The Blade Runner, the things I think of that I like that I can think of, Jack Kirby's 2000 AD. Okay,
yeah.
That's the one I'll say that I'm more than happy with.
Right.
But when I was a kid, what was it? I was probably like 10 or 11. I was getting those Marvel Super Specials of Return of the Jedi, the second Indiana Jones movie, Temple of Doom. And those were cool. But it was when I got around to Blade Runner that I felt like I was.
That's a good one because that's
the original script. Al Williamson.
There we go.
Yeah. Now that one, they left out the line "Tears and Rain," and I just remember being a kid, being like kind of pissed. You know what I mean?
I think that's because what's his name ad-libbed that, right?
Yeah. He came up with that speech before the scene and got the director to look at it, and he still kind of ad-libbed a little bit in there.
Yeah.
They gave the movie a soul. So, but you didn't know that when you're 10. You know what I mean? I mean, that recently came out. So I kind of wonder if we get less out of them because we're seeing they get the movie stills. I've always assumed they get to go in and watch the movie. I don't know.
Right. I don't think they do. They work with whatever they have.
Yeah. But you got things like Sheena, you got Willow, there's Labyrinth a little bit. Yeah, they're like what you're talking about. You get a little bit less there,
Yeah, it's like I was just like I'm a big fan of the Firefly TV show, but I've tried to read the Firefly comics, and they're just not that good. There's Firefly. I haven't read the latest ones. I've read the older ones, and they're just okay. I mean, he likes the adaptations of Krull and Dark Crystal. And it's like I read Buffy season 9 when it came out from Dark Horse, and it was okay. But it's like, they weren't great comics and they weren't the Buffy TV show. So it's kind of like I stopped. I read like 39 issues, however many was in the season. I can't remember. And I was like, all right, that's enough.
I may still have them.
Right.
But this one comic book shop didn't know what they were doing. They actually had their books for $0.25 a piece. And I was getting these variant covers for $0.25 a piece. That's how I got some Buffy stuff. And I tried to read some of them. Seems like she was like a part. I don't know. It seems like somebody was on a part of a cult or something. I don't know what was going on. Did John Byrne do the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones, or did he just do the covers?
No. He did I think he did like the first 2 issues and then was gone.
Oh,
if due to some reason I forget, but they were really good. Bill Sienkiewicz. I don't think I've ever read that Dune. I'll have to look that one up.
I actually got those books. I think it was three issues, and I regretted getting rid of them in the 90s because I got those when I was in the hospital getting my appendix out, and I had the Marvel Super Special of it. The Sienkiewicz stuff with Dune. When I read it, I'm looking at his art. Sienkiewicz, his art. Yeah, is that the Simonson?
I just remembered this. This is the artist edition of Alien. I don't have to do a taking a look at this because this was everyone says was a good adaptation. The Walt Simonson and Archie Goodwin Alien. The illustrated story.
But the Sienkiewicz Dune, it was his art. It was Sienkiewicz's art that kept me hanging in with that more than anything. I mean, some of the stuff. That was really the first time I really noticed Sienkiewicz was on that Dune miniseries. Like I knew his covers and stuff, but that was the first comic I actually remember reading that he had done, including his New Mutants.
I just remembered a good comic book I just read last year that was a continuation of The Prisoner.
I got a prequel, I think.
I think Titan Comics did it. Yeah, not the Dean Motter one from the 80s.
Yeah.
This is a new one that Titan Comic, and it was just like a slow week, and it was on the shelf, and I liked the art, so I'm like, I'll give it a chance. It was like only like a 4-issue series, but it was actually good. Like I said, adaptations and continuations of other properties are so rarely very good that it was like, oh wow, I'm enjoying this one.
Supernatural, the TV show, they had those books actually fit in pretty good with the TV.
Yeah, I remember them. I have them on my shelf. They were okay.
They could have had a better artist, but I think the reason they kind of fit in pretty good is because they had an actual producer write them from the show. People who were on the show were actually hands-on in the books.
Didn't Becky Cloonan or someone draw some of those? I'm going to walk over to my shelf. Hold on.
Yeah, that's fine. I just cataloged these last week. I should know this. I remember the stories. I just remember the team.
Let me see if I've got it. There's Small Gods.
All right, what do we got here?
Somerset Homes.
Yeah, Matthew Rasco, I apologize for questioning you, but it was like a gap in my memory. It was knee-jerk reaction. Scott Connor, you sneaky people having a video on Friday night. Yes.
I don't know where they are. They're not under S. I'll find them later.
If you would hit the bell and hit all, you would know. You know, Toki Deathhammer's on it. Toki, be more like the Toki Deathhammer, you know. Scott is all over this. I'm not a number. I'm a free man.
Let me see if those prisoners are
Oh, yeah, man. My blood is my own. This is awesome. Sometimes I wish Garth Ennis would adapt Kelly's Heroes into a comic. Oh, man. And his war comics are fantastic.
Peter Milligan wrote them.
Ah.
That's probably why they're pretty good.
The Dune comics and the trade paperbacks are now keys because of the upcoming film and the price has gone up. Speculators, Ralph Macchio wrote them. I think oh yes. Let me get this down.
I think I got the black and white cover of this one because it was cool. Let me show you and it was just only 4 issues. Some decent artwork. Let me see if I can.
That was Brett Anderson like.
Yeah, who's doing this? Colin Lorimer. Never heard of him. It's somebody else who got taken to the village.
Nice.
But well done. I must say, I enjoyed these thoroughly as comics.
Nice. Let's see here. Yeah, they brought up Dune. Gore Vidal brought up Dune in an upcoming movie, and the comic book adaptation are going up in value. I'm hoping, I know I got one of them. I'm hoping I have both or all 3 issues. I got to look it up, but I definitely have the Marvel Super Special that they split up into those miniseries. That miniseries that came out.
What year did the Dune comic come out?
I'm going to have to look it up because I'm wanting to say 85. See, I had the movie in there. I have the George Lynch movie. The movie's always kind of been in a collection, some shape, way, or form. Okay. because the Dune books were in the house along with Larry Niven's Ringworld and Piers Anthony and the Amber series. I can name off all these books that were in the house, even though I didn't completely read them. I would like rifle through them because they were the stepdads and all of their friends. They were into pulp novels and these series of books, like we're into series of comics and stuff. But I swear I can look it up. Those Dune books, I swear I was, it had to be 1985 when I was getting my appendix took out and all these people were sending me comics because I was stuck in the hospital for a week. And I know it was in that stack.
Yeah. Dune was one of the books that broke me of the habit of reading books all the way to the end.
Really?
That, because you know how when you're young, you're like, oh, I got to finish this book even if I don't like it.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was I must have been in high school or college. And I was like, you know what? I want to read the Dune books. They were famous. You know, I was a sci-fi fan.
And if it's going to show up, it was 3 issues in 1985. I got them all. I had them all 3 sitting in the hospital.
I must have missed out on that. I've not been collecting them then. I've been off Marvel, so I never saw it. But I read the first book of Dune and I was like, it was kind of okay. Then somehow, I don't know what happened, and I didn't know it was the 3rd book, but I read the 3rd book. I read the first book, I read the 3rd book, made it through started reading the 3rd book. I'm like, they skipped way ahead in time. That's kind of weird. Read all the way through the 3rd book, went, that was okay. Put it down, then realized I read the 3rd book and not the 2nd book. Picked up the 2nd book and went, I don't care anymore. And I've never read Dune again.
Dune never grabbed me, but I never hated it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't hate it either.
I don't quite grasp what gets everybody about it.
I like some of the concepts still stick with me. What sticks with me is the imagery of water being so precious and the worm. That imagery still sticks with me. So that was good stuff.
Yeah. But we're in the same ballpark there with a lot of the imagery and some of the things, but a lot of my stuff comes from there. But I've mind the comics. I've seen the Dunes, the Mobius Dune art and stuff. I think I actually had something that it might have been part of some Mobius stuff somewhere in a magazine or something.
I've always meant to watch that documentary, but I haven't. Someone asked us about Alan Moore earlier.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Matthew Roscoe, what are your thoughts on Alan Moore and his early DC work before Watchmen? Loved it.
Yeah.
That's got me reading that. I picked up Alan Moore with Swamp Thing. My first Alan Moore thing I read was like issue 22 of the Saga of the Swamp Thing, which is really weird because, once again, I don't know where I heard stuff. I'm always like, well, I heard that the Alan Moore, like there was buzz about Alan Moore by his 3rd issue of Swamp Thing. And that's why I picked up his 3rd issue of Swamp Thing. And I'm like, where did I hear that buzz? Who told me? I don't know. It's weird. I can't remember because that's 1980.
4-ish, 3-ish, 4-ish.
I was in high school. There was my friend Rob, who was the only one from high school I still talk to. He and I were the only ones I knew who collected comics. There was one other guy but I'm like, where did I hear this buzz? But I heard this buzz and heard that Alan, maybe from reading. There was no online. I mean, I would buy every magazine about comics I could find. The comic shop was open by then, but I was just like, I don't know where I heard this. It must have been in a magazine or something somewhere. So I was on Alan Moore right away with his 3rd issue, and then I bought everything he did. You know.
Yeah, we talked about Alan Moore before, and it made me really kind of not so much think, but keep it in the back of my head. And I think I actually really jumped on liking Alan Moore as a writer, actual fan, ready to get anything he ever done with his Superman annual number 11 for the Man Who Has Everything. But it was for the man who, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, the last Silver Age story of Superman.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that story right there, the way he brought everything in, and after being like, this is the horror writer in my mind, and he writes this perfect Superman.
He proved that Superman.
Yeah.
He proved that Superman didn't need a reboot. He just needed a good writer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and he didn't. He's versatile. That's. I think I didn't have the word back then, but I'm like, this guy can write anything. Is what was going through my head. He's a versatile writer. But yeah, for the Man, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, that's the one that made me a more fan. Like that now, I'm going to eat up anything he writes. That was the one.
One of my that just popped into my head. Speaking about early Alan Moore, the issues where he had Swamp Thing go on to what's that? Candor with Adam Strange? No, Candor is the Bottled Cities.
Rand.
What's the La? What's Adam Strange's planet he goes to?
I thought it was Ran. Rann.
Ran. Right. Adam Strange. He rides the Zeta Beam to Ran. Right.
Yeah.
When he had Swamp Thing go to Ran, and he had like Hawkman in it too, and he wrote Hawkman like you've never seen before.
Thangarian. They were Thangarian, my friend.
Yeah, Thangarians. There we go.
Yeah. They were hard to haul, but yes, yeah.
Right. And they were warriors, and they knew how to fight in the air specifically.
They were barbarians with wings.
And they were they were more refined than that because they had like specific winged aerial fighting style, and they were just mocking Adam Strange for riding around on this jetpack and having no idea how to use it.
Yeah. And
then there was just one, I forget, I can't even remember how Adam Strange defeated him. But his closing line was like, like something around like, we Earthmen may not know the 7 arts of aerial combat, but we sure are sons of bitches, or something like that. Because that just made me go, wow, I love this Alan.
Well, so if I get crucified this or not, but the biggest thing I remember about his Adam Strange stuff that cracked me up is that he's running. You don't know it's Adam Strange yet. He's got blonde hair. He's running, and he stops, and he's like, they built a mall, and he had to run through the mall and throw somebody out of a stall because he was going to hit in a bathroom stall. I don't know if this is a question for me, but I'll bring it up here. You didn't like Moore's Vigilante issues? I didn't read those till later. I did not. Those Vigilante was a direct market book just for the shops.
Alan Moore wrote Vigilante?
Yeah, he did 2 issues, which were fantastic.
I've never even seen those.
It's that's the problem here. I don't want to get topical, but it's a great story. But you can tell it was a Moore book because he brought a little bit of an adult Moore theme to it. There's a lesbian couple in it. There's a crazy ex-husband coming after one of them, something like that. I mean, it was really good. Like I said, he was versatile. But the Swamp Thing stuff, that stuff he did where he sent Swamp Thing into space is just amazing.
Scott Connor just said, all my buzz for comics back then came from CBG. I wasn't even buying CBG. I had no access to it. So I'm still not sure where my buzz was.
All right. I don't want to skip anybody here, but we got some great comments here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you don't mind if I go over a few of them, do you?
No.
Been rereading pre-crisis DC comics. It makes me feel very nostalgic. Early 80s Swamp Thing and Blue Devil were my gateway superhero comics. And what he said right there, that's the thing to realize how cool Crisis on Infinite Earth was, to see what Alan Moore was doing and to see what Watchmen was, why it was such a big thing. You need to go back and read what was coming out before that and see what they were doing.
Yeah, Blue Devil, I think I may have got 1 issue of, but that was just when I was stopping to buy mainstream superhero comics. So.
Got the first 4 issues while I was in the hospital, along with a Booster Gold or 2. Yeah. That might have been where my hate for Booster Gold was born. I don't know.
Hello Superman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Some scariest scenes to happen with, I don't remember that one. One of the scene I love in the for the Man Who Has Everything was after I think it was Robin got that plant thing off of Superman. Superman just looks at him and goes, "Who did this to me?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you had the who did this. I mean, I'm right there with you, but I was one of those people, and it amazed me how over the years people picked up on it. It's when Superman just looked at him and said, "Burn."
Yeah.
Now,
and there was something he wrote about Superman flew so fast that he like almost beat the sound wave of him screaming there. and
I mean,
Vogel was
up with this stuff. That's what I mean. Alan Moore puts you in the moment. And you're just like,
yeah.
When he was writing Swamp Thing, I imagined him really taking a trip to a Louisiana swamp and smelling everything. Yeah. Tim Truman's Hawkman series. We talked about that. I dug it. I've got him signed by him.
Yeah, I remember liking that. That was okay. I haven't looked at it. I'm generally a Tim Truman fan. I like Scout a lot.
Jared's right about the buzz around Swamp Thing at the time. I'd already discovered him in One Warrior magazine. I ordered as a kid. V from the Dead and Marvel Man.
Yeah, Marvel. That was good stuff.
Oh, Maxwell the Magical Cat. I've seen 3 or 4 strips of that.
I've never seen it. That was one of his British ones that they keep wanting to bring over because his name's on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like in an interview. It might be like in Wizard. I don't know. I've got some interview magazine where they pull a couple strips of it. I know the cat was playing with a can. I don't know. I mean, yeah. Let me see. Okay, and they're all talking amongst themselves.
Hey, where'd you go? We lost Howler now. He'll come back up. Meanwhile, let's see what's in here. I miss CBG's great. I actually didn't start subscribing to CBG until the 90s. I really enjoyed it. There you go. Talking CBG for a moment.
That may have been me.
Yeah, you dropped out. I figured it was you.
Yeah,
I figured you'd be back in a minute. Like I didn't subscribe to CBG to the 90s and really enjoyed it and would have kept subscribed. Then it turned itself kind of into like Wizard magazine, and I was just like, because what happened was it was a weekly comic newspaper. And then it went to a monthly magazine, and it was just the same time. And there was more about it. There was more movies in it than comics. So it's just kind of like, this isn't for me. I don't care about the movies. I care about the comics.
Yeah, speaking of the CBG. Oh, no. Y'all getting an echo from me?
Talk again. Let's see.
Hello. Yeah. But CBG, I ended up being on comicboards.com, and there's a guy named Commander Benson on there, and we would talk. I mean, I guess we were online friends for about 4 or 5 years until I picked up one of the last issues of CBG and found out he had a whole article in there. He was like,
Scott Connor's saying you're getting an echo from you big time. You're sounding more like you're underwater a bit to me.
I'm going to go out and come back in.
Okay, go out and come back in. We'll be here. We're not going anywhere.
Oh, wait a minute. I can do it from here.
You can probably just change your mic settings or something, or just switch on and off mics. Microphones. Yeah, I miss CBG. Because I was never a Wizard fan. Wizard was kind of for younger people than me. And
this is going to drive me nuts. I think it's fixed. But no, I liked Wizard. Wizard was really cool up until seriously around the year 2000, I think, when they started doing game when they did Toy Fair, then they had their Inquest, I don't know, card game book and stuff. It really diluted Wizard. It really changed what it started out as what it was.
I think I was just too much of an insider to appreciate Wizard.
Okay.
That's all it was. It was like, it was kind of, Wizard was kind of an inside look at comics, but I was on the inside, so I didn't need an inside look at comics.
I never really looked at it like that. Yeah, they just had some good, they had Frank Miller, Neil Gaiman, and Alan Moore all in one issue.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, I really was like,
I was never huge into interviews.
Really?
I don't know why.
I would always, it's not so much I wanted to know about them. I just wanted them to drop. I loved hearing about these projects they could do. I mean, I heard about Twilight of the Superheroes of Alan Moore from one of those magazines. You would hear these stories that they didn't get to finish or do, or
Right.
you'd hear about why they didn't finish the story. I mean, I was like hardcore all about the books. You know what I mean? And
when I actually read interviews, I generally like them. But I don't like the thought of reading interviews for some reason. So it's like
the only one that I really liked is I've got this. They collected them. It's all the collected. This one magazine. I don't remember what it is. It's here somewhere. But the one that really got me was one they did on George Perez. They took 10 years worth of interviews with their magazine or something and put them in like a little black square bound book. You know, I've got two or three of them. But the one about George Perez, I don't know what was up with that one, man, but he just came through as the nicest guy. You really started getting fascinated with him. Right. More than his works. And that was the first interview I read that ever did that for me of somebody in comics. I wanted to hear about what the story behind the stories, like the Hellfire Club came from the Avengers TV show and all this stuff. Brimstone, the episode Brimstone. I love that stuff, you know.
That stuff is fun. A matter of fact, I bought Comic Book Artist for years and back issue too. I don't know why I stopped. I just kind of did probably because I found more comics to buy, because those magazines aren't cheap. Yeah, they're like $10 a piece.
That blows my mind.
From like 2000 to 2011, I was buying a lot of them because there weren't a lot of comics for me to buy. But then after 2000, like the Image Revolution happened, and there was just many more comics to my taste. So it's like I stopped buying the interview magazines.
I think one of the most underrated. Yeah, one of the most underrated books that I never really hear anybody get nostalgic about was Comic Scene. You were getting cartoons, movies. Yeah, that's where I found out about James O'Barr and the Crow. And those were like legit, really journalistic pieces. They weren't just, you know.
What was that one that David Anthony Kraft used to put out? I think they collected it all recently, didn't they?
That's it. That's it. David Anthony Kraft it was his book, and it was all the George Perez. I mean, I've got it here somewhere.
Comics Interview was the name of it, or something like that.
That could be it. That's probably it. But David Anthony Kraft, it's his book.
Dak.
Yeah.
He used to write the Defenders, some Defenders issues I liked.
When
I first reading the Defenders around issue 50, I think Dak was writing them, and Keith Giffen may have been drawing them, and they were trippy, Steranko, Kirby-esque weirdness.
I'm trying to think what it was. I just found an issue of Daredevil in the 240s that Keith Giffen drew going through my stuff. Yeah. I was looking for a Charles Vest cover. It's the one with the Charles Vest cover where there's a Charles Vest cover where Daredevil is fighting an alligator in the swamp, in the sewers of New York. And I got in there and I started flipping through it, and it was Keith Giffen artwork. I'm like, this is in the middle of him doing Justice League. I'm like, what's going on here? What, you know, he was doing some, I think he was doing some New Universe stuff too.
That just reminds me, speaking of interview magazines, I just recommended this to Captain Strangelife because he was showing off some Harvey comics he got.
Right on.
And I think, what was it? It was, I think it was back issue. Like, from 2002, I can't remember if it was issue 18 or 17, but it was like the all Harvey comics issue. And I can remember getting it and going, oh, the all Harvey comics issue. I don't know anything about Harvey comics. What do I care? Then I read it, and it was my favorite issue ever because I don't know anything about Harvey comics. And just reading about, there was a guy, Captain Strangelife was showing off couple of the covers he got, the couple of the comics he got, the covers of them from the 60s, and they were beautiful. And it was Warren Kremer was the guy's name, who was Harvey Comics' main art director and main artist for their covers. And the stuff he does is beautiful. I can't believe I never even heard his name before I read this issue in 2002. I'm like, and this guy was like a giant in comics, like all through the 50s and 60s, running, being Harvey's main art director. And I was just like, it's amazing how I could not have even heard of this guy before. It's just crazy. But that I recommend that issue just because it was so fascinating, because all the behind the scenes stuff at Harvey Comics. And it's like, I didn't know word one of any of it.
Man, we really brought up some memories for some people here. Yeah. With the Wizard, the Comic Scene, Tom Strong, Astro City, Keith Giffen on Dr. Fate. I mean, I almost want to just sit here and like, let's read the comic. I'm like, I'll just read
some comic. But they're mentioning Bud Plant. I don't think I ever got to order anything from Bud Plant, but I got the catalogs all the time. And I just loved looking through the catalogs.
Did his catalogs come just folded in two staples?
I don't remember. I remember the fancier ones.
Well, I'm going to double check now because we had a show a few weeks back where I talked about getting the ads in comic books, and I would get those catalogs. I'm going to laugh if this is the guy that I ordered them off of.
I used to get the Mile High Comics catalog too, which was just, and I'd get all the stuff I want to order at and never order it because I didn't have any money. I was a kid.
I don't think I ordered comics from a comic book place like Mile High or Lone Star Comics, whatever it's called back in the day and stuff, until Amalgam Comics came out, because I was determined. That was probably the first comics I paid full price for. I think I got a discount for getting them all, so still got a little hustle there and stuff. But that was the first time I ordered comics, and I got carried away. I got the Amalgam Comics, and I went, well, hell, they got the Tick, so I just got the issues of the Tick I needed. Came in the mail, and I'm sitting here thinking, this is the way to go. Who knew? Who knew? You know what I mean? I was like, who knew? And I think I'm pretty sure I ordered them online with the old phone modem, where as you ordered, you had to sit there and listen to the robot sounds. Okay. Not sure. If you order from Mile High, what you had to do was tear out the back of the catalog, fill in what comics you want, put alternates in too, in case they sold out of those, and then mail it off with a check. And then they mail you the comics back. Nope, I mailed it off because I remember having to pick alternates. And I wrote a little note, I don't want alternates. You just send my money back. I remember writing that in now, I think. I don't know. But I remember
the Bud Plant with large magazine-sized format catalog. Yeah, those are the ones I remember. Those Bud Plants. They were nice. I mean, you could actually, I remember poring over like the fantasy art in them, just like on the book covers and stuff.
Man.
It was great stuff. They were like an art catalog to me. I had a subscription to Captain Victory as it was coming out. I remember getting that for Christmas. For Captain Victory and I think Star Slayer.
So you guys have read Captain Victory, right? And I said it for years. I got on there and stuff. I never put it together, but Captain Victory is the grandson of Darkseid. They snuck it in. He snuck it in. When you're reading Captain Victory, you're reading some new gods.
Captain Victory might be my favorite Kirby. I love that series. I really do.
It was brutal,
crazy. There's like there's an idea every 3 pages in there. It's just crazy.
It's actually got one of my favorite panels of all time. And I wish I could remember the line right. But there's a part where Captain Victory, I think it's under Pittsburgh, those bugs, gigantic bugs come out of the ground, right? One gets a hold of him, he's lost an eye, and his eyes just like kind of hanging there. He's still like, we're still going to go after him. And somebody goes, your eye. He's like, it's all right. All right. He says something like, it's not hurt, it's only maimed. Let's go.
Because Captain Victory had a whole bunch of cloned bodies that they would transfer him into. And I remember one guy saying, you can't just keep going, dying like this. We're going to run out of bodies. And he's like, nope.
Man.
But I can remember sometime in the past in my blog where I back before I did YouTube, I used to just write like an appreciation, 1,000-word appreciation on covers I'd liked. And one of them was a Captain Victory cover, just the Micro Troops Forward cover. I just love that cover. It was just like, wow. But I wrote 1,000 words about it once.
That's awesome. Well, in 7th grade, I got in trouble for talking and had a 15-page paper to write. I did it on Marvel Saga. I was like, Amalgam Comics were awesome, although I'm still a bit peeved that my ex took my first copy of Doctor Strange Fate before we broke up.
Matter of fact, I have my friend who gave me a bunch of comics to sell for him or get rid of. That's like the one thing I noticed that was worth some money that I could sell is an Amalgam trade paperback.
Nice.
Because these will never be reprinted. So it goes for about $40 or something. So I'm like,
are you serious?
Yeah, I'm like, at least I can sell that for them because.
Oh, see, I didn't get the trade. I have all the books. The Doctor Strange Fate, I actually have it signed by Ron Mars and Jose Garcia Lopez. So I thought it was a cool book, you know. Oh man, here we go. See, sometimes I feel like I'm getting baited with some of these comments, man. Commanding Challengers Unknown were my Kirby comics.
That's because you can talk about Commandy all day.
It's sad. It's sad, but I have no shame. There's no regret.
Kirby Genesis says, fortunately, my mother never looked at what I ordered. That American flag might have been too sexy for his mom, for his age.
I got to go back and read those. I think I read somewhere just Howard was just writing them there towards the end or something.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of those. I didn't like it after he stopped drawing them. And he never really had an end for it, which disappointed me. It just kind of petered out. So I ended up being disappointed with American Flag. And I haven't read them in years, but someday I'll have to reread them. Matter of fact, I don't think I think I gave those away to my friend.
American Flag, Nexus, John Sable, Grimjack were the big ones I kind of heard about from people who actually got
I showed you my Grim Jacket on one of these, so I was a Grim Jack fan.
Let me see what's going on here.
Grim Jack. What? Are they texting you on a Friday night, your work?
No. I wouldn't answer work now anyway, unless they shut up my door. But no. Oh my gosh. This has been fun.
Grim Jack.
I mean, just to have somebody bring up Captain Victory just blows my mind. That's just fantastic.
Captain Victory and his Galactic Rangers. I wish they would have put out that oversized hardcover of it, but they couldn't find good shots of the original. Eric Larson tried to back when he was the Images publisher in early 2000s, somewhat time around that. Yeah. He put out like Silver Star. I got a hardcover of Silver Star from Image Comics. That was the first time I got to read that. That's really good, Silver Star.
I think it was.
And they wanted to put out Captain Victory in an oversized hardcover edition, but they couldn't find good copies, good stats of the artwork or the original, or good copies of the original art. So they never did. So,
is there not anything to do where they can scan some of that stuff and just do something with a computer to manipulate it?
It can, but it's never as good. I mean, they do that with a lot of old comics, but it's never as good as you think. It's okay. Matter of fact, I just had a discussion on Facebook with some people recently, some of my comic book industry friends, and I'm like, listen, no matter how good technology is, you can't just scan in a page from a printed comic and reprint it from pre-printed. It doesn't work that way. I've done it.
I've got a My Favorite Martian or something from Free Comic Book Day a few years ago where that's exactly what they did, and it looks like total shit.
Gore Vidal just said, let's say, Jared, it made confessions interesting on Fridays. I went to Catholic school at the time. I didn't go to Catholic school, but I was raised Catholic, went to CCD classes, had to go to confession, and I always resented confession because I had to make up sins to tell the priest. I'm freaking 10 years old. I'm not doing anything.
Wow.
I had to make up things to tell them. I fought with my sister. I cursed. I did this thing. I got into a fight. I used to the only place I used to lie was in confession. But then I could confess it and be okay. Or I'm like, here I am 12 years old going, I'm like, this is absurd. This is so hypocritical. I'm going into confession and making up things.
My first crush was on a nun, but I didn't understand what nuns were. I mean, I was literally like 3, maybe 3 or so. I remember her. I didn't understand. Yeah, but we have a very small Catholic community down here. I think there's maybe 3 churches over 3 counties. So that was a daycare run by a Catholic. I wasn't Catholic.
Behind the comments, yes, the confession conundrum. You can't show up with nothing because everybody's a sinner.
Okay. I never quite got the concept of you can be born a sinner. You haven't experienced any life. You know what I mean? The potential. Now we're getting
Adam and Eve messed up, and you're paying the price, mister.
Schrodinger's cat. Oh my gosh. Let me see. Okay, I don't want to get too negative here, but we got to work with everybody's got a voice here, but yeah, this was really bad. Finished Eric Larson trying to finish up more Supreme. I
I
didn't
was
have,
okay with it. He just basically destroyed everything and stopped over. I don't, you know what? It's work for hire stuff. That's what they do.
I got the first issue Larson did because it was supposed to be in the script they never drew from Moore.
Yeah.
Then I checked out the next one and I'm just sort of like, I don't know, man.
I read them all. They were fine. It was a fine continuation, but
Those giant size 100. Oh yeah, those giant size Crisis on Infinite Earth books that have come out at Walmart, the 1 and 2. They actually rip off a Supreme story in those. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was looking at this and I'm like, I saw it like Marv Wolfman helped plot this, man. Now there's a guy that I refuse to believe. I don't know. But yeah, if you know your Alan Moore Supreme and you read that Superman story in it with Lex Luthor, I'm sitting here like, this was done in the 90s in Supreme. What in the world, man? We were talking Kirby, man. Did you check out the Dynamite book? I want to say it came out. It's had to come out in the last 10 years, but it was called Kirby Genesis.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. But...
Yeah. I loved it. There was characters there where I'm like, over and over and over, this is just a book waiting to happen. I mean, he took Moon Boy and Commandy and had them have a dinosaur, but they were different in there. And he had some dude riding a cosmic motorcycle and he looked like Easy Rider riding through space there towards the end. I'm like, this is fantastic.
I'm just not a huge fan of non-Kirby.
Well, I think what it was is like I recognize some of the characters like Silver Swan, I think, and I mean Victory and all them there, but there was a lot of characters in there nobody had seen because they got with the Kirby estate, whoever was running it at the time, and they gave them some stuff that he never really put out there before. So there was I think I was more into the Kirby characters we never saw before in there, So I mean, I totally get it. The only guy that I've liked who's done Kirby has been George Perez. When he was doing the New Gods and stuff and Commandy and Crisis on Infinite Earth. What'd you say?
I thought I was the only one, Jared. It's true about the confession conundrum, as Gus said. Yep. When you're 10, you don't have any sins. You got to make stuff up to tell them. It's crazy.
Well, here's a good one.
Well, you're an adult. You're supposed to have some.
Oh, here we go. Scott finally got around to reading Devil Dinosaur a few weeks back. Some of that stuff got...
That is good stuff. I read that finally when it came out in an omnibus edition. I don't even know, 10 years ago now. Everything's 5 or 10 years ago. Who knows? But that was good stuff.
I hope I'm not getting my cavemen mixed up with the caveman in 2000 AD, but that clan of caveman that was in it, they were freaking evil. I mean, I was like, What we got? Are you down with NKK? There we go. Just wait until the series is announced. Yeah, that's what gets me the last couple of years. There's all kinds of stuff people are like really trying to find right now. There's a TV show. Last week was amazing. On eBay a little bit. And it was on there, and I think Newsarama had one article, Bleeding Cool had the other one. But did you see the 2 hot books last week? They're still kind of hot on eBay.
One of them was some villain in some issue 4 of some book. I remember
Youngblood number 2. Youngblood number 2 Prophet. And I had like 3 or 4 of the copies of that. I'm going to be surprised if I still have one. They've announced Prophet. So a Youngblood number 2 that had like 1 million copies printed up, was going for big bucks. And a book that I never even heard of from 1999 called Ball and Chain or something, because Netflix is going to make
I never heard of that one either. I'm like, okay.
No. And they were going for, I saw one, I think I saw one go for $102 on eBay. I'm like, what? Are you kidding?
There's like, what am I thinking? Does anybody care about like the Men in Black comic anymore?
Nobody knew it was a comic, even though it says at the beginning of the movie based on the comic. I never
But
heard
the comic was hot for me. I'm just like, does anyone? Because I've never seen anyone show off the Men in Black comic on YouTube, and does like anyone look for that? Is that in the dollar bins, or just everyone who has one, who wants one, has one, and they never show it?
Okay, Scott has continued. He's
not Kirby NKK.
Decided
no,
to.
I'm not down with NKK.
You know me. All right, we got a question here. Cosmic Odyssey. That's Jim Starlin and Mike Mignola, if that's what I'm thinking of. I had to come around to it. I thought it was a ripoff of just one more Crisis on Infinite Earths thing, and then I read it, and I dug it. I liked it. A little bit forced in places, but I liked it.
I don't remember if I ever read that. For some reason, Mike Mignola's interior artwork leaves me cold.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. Yeah. I love his covers. But when I read his panel-to-panel stuff, it's okay. I don't know why. I don't know why it leaves me cold.
His early stuff on the Fenders and Hulk and Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon, I think the colors helped. He used a lot of whites in the background. I mean, whatever. His World of Krypton, it was around this time I started coming around to him and really noticing him. He did World of Krypton, 4-issue miniseries with John Byrne around this time. John Byrne. And that's the one that had me finally notice the guy. Now, his Cosmic Odyssey stuff, it took me a little bit of time to come around to it, but he had some really good visuals in there. I mean, he had Darkseid with Ederkin the Demon on a chain. Like, it's.
I love his covers. I love his visuals. Like I've never been into Hellboy, but I love the Hellboy covers.
Yeah.
And he's a guy too. He retired from comics and then came back to comics. Like, do you remember him retiring from comics a couple of years ago?
Kind of, yeah. He's doing a lot of sketches and stuff right now too. That he's.
And I know he was at a Society of Illustrators thing a couple of years ago that my friend Ed, who's a member of the Society of Illustrators, was at, and he and my friend Ed was talking to him, and he was telling me what Mike Mignola was up to. I was like, didn't Mike Mignola retire from comics just like 6 months ago? And it's like, yeah, he said he did. He retired to comics to paint, and he found out he was no painter. So he started doing comics again. I just laughed at that. I found that so funny.
I can't figure out if he's a perfectionist or if he has a lot of anxiety, because he'll, anything to do with Hellboy and these sketches and stuff, he'll talk about how doing this type of work stresses him out. So I went back to sketches and I feel much better about it. And he talks about there's pages and pages of Hellboy we'll never see because he'll just get rid of them and start all over because he's not happy with them. So I've never figured it out. This is the thing that's always been around with comics a little bit, and thanks to the internet, this is huge. I mean, now we see it, but books like this, the Eternals, case in point, for years they were in dollar bins. No one talked about it outside the usual suspects, and now it's like people kind of claim they've always been fans of the Eternals and stuff like that.
Yeah, that does amaze me. The Eternals was not only not talked about, in generally, superhero fans didn't like it. I mean, I always liked it, and I was like the outlier. Most superheroes, I mean, they don't, even today, the ones who collect it don't actually read it. But it's like that for years, that was like a completely ignored, disrespected comic. And now all of a sudden people are all over it.
Yeah. I read it because it was Kirby. There's no doubt about it. I've shown the books on here before. I've shown when I got a whole bunch of them at a flea market with the number one I already had and all that stuff. And the thing about it is that I didn't like the second miniseries that came on. They were kind of cool. And I can remember reading Eternals here and there, but they were never huge. I'm like, how did they fit in with humans? They were more confusing where they fit in than anything,
Yeah. That's because they were, like I said, the first issues of Eternals I got them both at the same time, I think, was the cosmic powered Hulk issues. I mean, I must have got them because the Hulk was my favorite and they're on the cover. That's probably how I noticed them. But I remember reading those. I can remember reading those issues over and over and trying to puzzle out where this. It took me. I remember puzzling out that this wasn't the Marvel universe, because the cosmic powered Hulk wasn't the Hulk. He was the TV Hulk that some like guys in college made. I don't know if you remember that story at all.
Yeah, and I'm getting my Hulks confused. The Omega the Unknown had the robot Hulk. Sorry. Yeah.
No. The real Hulk was in Omega the Unknown.
There's a robot Hulk floating around in one of these books over here that
the Omega the Unknown, I think, had wasn't the real? I think it was the real. It was his. There were other robots in Omega the Unknown. I don't think the Hulk was. Gore Vidal is singing the praises of
Walt
Simonson's Orion. I've always, like I said, I'm so glad Walt is doing Ragnarok, because I haven't read his work in so long, because I've been out of mainstream superheroes, and now that he's doing an indie book, I'm like, whoa, now that's up my alley.
Well,
and you don't really good.
Well, for people that's watching, you don't name drop, but you know Walt personally, right? Yeah, I mean, just to get that out there, why? Yeah. So it blows my mind. We never met, but there's a couple people that's put us at 1 degree of separation. That blows my mind.
I'm one of Walt's young friends. He actually, he was out with my friend Ed, who's the same age as me, and we go to the diner somewhere when there's not a pandemic on. Or we go to the diner sometimes, and we were walking out. He's like, I consider you guys my young friends. We're like, we're not that young anymore, you know. He's like, yep, you're still a lot younger than me.
Oh man. Now this thing about people kind of jumping on a little bit of a bandwagon when something gets big and claiming things. The one of the things that's always killed me, and you might remember this. I can talk Eternals, Jack Kirby, whatever you want to talk about all day here. You know, you can go steer me around however you want to do it. But do you remember a couple years ago when Grant Morrison did an interview, and he said at the end of The Killing Joke, Batman actually kills the Joker by poisoning him with his own thing? Nobody had talked about that. Nobody had ever said that. I mean, I knew some of these people on YouTube by the time, you know what I mean? And the only thing I had to say about it is I always thought that was like a weird ending. It felt odd. The ending felt off for that book. That's all. That's the only criticism I ever said. But everybody jumped up there, and we're talking like dozens and dozens of videos. People I didn't even know made YouTube videos about comics. We're all like trying to be cool about it, being like, oh yeah, I knew that. It's obvious. It's obvious. You know, if you've read it, you know it. Yeah, I've always thought that. And they were like dead serious. And I'm just sitting here like, am I the only one seeing this? That was an interesting time on YouTube. That was the first time I started looking around and realizing some of these people are full of shit. You know, it was like the innocence. That's when YouTube lost some innocence for me. I'm like, you guys are, oh my God, that ran all over me. It was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I'm like I said, I'm used to you when I see someone on YouTube, someone really has to prove that they know what they're talking about to me, because do you know that scene in there we go, Megan?
Yeah, sorry. Go
Somebody
ahead.
sent me I'm gonna forward you this email. Somebody sent me an email all about Omega the Unknown and all this stuff about it that I never knew.
Yeah.
After they watched my Omega video, I forget who did it, but I'm going to send you that. I'll forward that to you. But Absolutely. It's like, do you know that scene in Annie Hall where they're on like a movie line and there's some blowhard talking about the movie?
Yep.
I can't remember who, and all of a sudden, or they're talking about books, and all of a sudden, Woody Allen goes, "Hold on a second, I've got the author right here." and the author goes, "You know nothing about my work." Well, I kind of lived that when I was at Marvel, because there was always, you couldn't come, anybody who tried to come off as an expert on comics, well, the writer or artist or editor might be right there to tell you tell you you're wrong. So it was always like, working at Marvel, it was like you you got stuff from the horse's mouth. So a lot of times, like when I see experts on YouTube, I'm always like, really? We'll have to see if this guy knows what he's talking about before I think he's any kind of expert.
That's hilarious.
I
would. That is awesome. I mean, that's just.
You couldn't say, you couldn't say, well, what happened here was Alan Moore. The guy was like, you might hear, what? I was Alan Moore's roommate for 3 years, and he never said that. And you're like, oh, okay. I guess that never happened. So it's like you had a.
No, I'm really picturing you having Walt Simonson on speaker phone. Like, wait a damn minute. Wait. Yeah.
You know nothing about my work. And Woody's like, don't you wish life were really like that?
That would be awesome.
But okay. Yeah, it was like the guys who made the comics were there, so you couldn't speak for them. Yeah.
All right. Apparently, that was the real Hulk in Omega.
It was the real Hulk. Yeah, I don't remember. You're probably mixing it up with like the first issue reveal of his parents being robots.
I don't know. It might be. I'm convinced there was a robot Hulk floating around some of the books, and that was their out about how the Hulk popped.
There must have been a robot Hulk here or there. Well, the cosmic powered Hulk was different.
Well, dude, I'm approaching that age of 50, and I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 years, a lot of things are merging together.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
people always say, like when I post old pictures or stuff on Facebook, people are always like, oh, your memory is much better than mine. I'm like, no, it's not. I wrote it down. I wrote down names and dates of the pictures and where it was. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember.
It's been interesting here. I swear to God, the only reason
Marshall McLuhan, right, Gore Vidal? Was that it? I was going to say that name, but I wasn't sure. Or the medium is the message.
I will tell you, if I find out I'm thinking about the Superman robots and the Superboy robots from the Silver Age fusion with Hulk, I'm going to the doctor. There's no excuse for that. That's
Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers animated cartoon. Yeah. I actually, when did that come out? It's right back here.
I didn't know it came out. I mean, like I knew it was coming, but I didn't know it came out. Oh, and by the way, Scott, the new phone that I have, I've got to figure out the settings for Messenger. It does not alert me when you've been messaging me. I'll open up my Messenger and I'll have 4 waiting from people. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
This was the first time I got to read the Fabulous Furry, 2008. I mean, I knew they existed and saw some comics here and there, but I never got into the undergrounds. So when this came out, like I said, somewhere around 2000 to 2011, I was buying a lot of collected editions just for the heck of it because I wasn't buying a lot of monthly comics. So I remember that's why I picked this up. I was just like, all right, Freak Brothers, I'll give it a try.
Last I heard they were talking about having one. I didn't know it was out. I've seen 2 issues of the Freak Brothers my entire life, and I've seen 4 or 5 people with some of them in their collection, and they're the same issues. So I don't know what to deal with that. Yeah.
They're decent. I wouldn't say they're great, but they're fun underground comics.
Yeah. It just killed me about the fist. It was always them walking off in the sunset, and they each have like a peace sign in the fist, and was one flipping everybody off or something, or a thumbs up. I don't know. Yeah. But I was like, this guy's really into it, man. The guy, whoever's drawing those, it was amazing. How are you on time?
I'm okay.
Okay. All right.
I can go a little while longer. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. The Freak Brothers cartoon. I wonder where that's. I want to have to look that up and see.
I heard they were making one. I didn't know it was out.
Right. I'm going to look it up later, man. I'm not doing it now. That's rude. But
look it up later, Gator.
Oh man, I still think the American Splendor movie is the most underrated comic book movie of all time.
I want to watch that again. I really liked it. I liked the Crumb movie. I liked the Splendor movie.
Now the Crumb movie, the Crumb documentary. I still have that on VHS. I've had that VHS for so long. I really don't know if I've got it on DVD yet or not. But the Crumb one is so heavy with some things and so well paced. I've discovered I really need to set some time, and I got to be in the right frame of mind to watch that. You know, like
I mean, he's the sane one in the family.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always put it in my head the reason he came out the other end. And I got told a couple years ago that where he's been in France after watching that documentary, that's why he finally started getting some counseling. So he's leveled off in his old age, is what I've heard. But I really think him drawing all the time and getting some of that messed up stuff out of his head through that pen onto paper is what saved him.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, like it's an accident. It's not like that's why he was doing it. But could you imagine his older brother was the one with the real talent? Could you imagine some of the stuff he would have put out
some of the stuff was incredible. That Graphomania stuff he was drawing was just like wow.
Yeah. In the 50s.
Yeah.
The stuff he was doing in the 50s just for those artist tests, and they had an artist to say, do you want to, they would have that guy, whatever it was, to go to this art school, and that little, he went against the grain on everything and made it better. I mean, he put a dead body in a cup, you know, on their test. You know what I mean?
So creative. It was crazy.
Yeah. Then he got into the wrinkles and stuff, and some of that stuff, I kind of think he might have been schizophrenic, not to go into my day job here with it.
Right.
But yeah, some of that stuff he was doing. But American Splendor, man, that's the one where that's the most underrated movie. That's one of the movies that has like a soul in it. Everybody fell in love that I know falls in love with the movie right when they show the real Harvey P. Carr and his real friends on the movie set eating jelly beans and stuff. That's when everybody kind of falls in love with that movie. John Goodman voices Fat Freddy. I guess they're talking about the Freak Brothers. What's the best DC Phantom Stranger run? I think the Steve Skeets Jim Aparo stuff. I got a cheap collected edition up here.
I don't know Phantom Stranger very much. I've read some stuff here and there in the 70s. I thought he always looked cool, but
he wears a trilby. I'm like, okay, people, it's not a fedora, it's a trilby.
Do any of you know the Eisner Spirit strips that inspired Frank Miller's Elektra origin? I don't know if
I don't know if I know the specific strip.
Yeah, I don't know the specific strip. I know he liked Eisner's Femme Fatales, like who were they? Piguel.
Oh, Sans Serifin.
Sans Serif, that's the other one, right? I think Piguel was one of them.
Well,
but I never thought about it. Now I can see why he said, because what used to happen is with Sans Serif is she used to come around and like the spirit in men would just fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of it, now that I think of it, that's always the part of Elektra I didn't like. Now, I never thought before that that's where Miller got it from. Because it was kind of comic relief in the Eisner strips, or at least it was tongue in cheek, where, you know, this incredibly beautiful, evil, villainous woman would show up and the guys would just be like drooling on themselves, trying to please her. Yeah. And that's kind of what Matt Murdock did with Elektra when she showed up.
Yeah.
He was just a doormat.
You know what? And I can't remember if it was actually in a book or if it was me talking to somebody about the book.
Uh-huh.
But somewhere along the line, they were talking about with his heightened senses that he'd have to be a horn dog around women. Not to go into it. But
see, one of the things that just heightened senses just reminded me of one of the things that's always bothered me about writers in Daredevil is they mix up the two meanings of the word sensitive.
Sensitive?
There are two meanings to the word sensitive.
Uh-huh.
One is sort of can pick up a lot of information. Like a dog's nose is 200 times more sensitive than a human's nose.
Okay.
That means a dog's nose can pick up 200 times the information our nose does. And the other definition of sensitive is kind of easily hurt, when something is, you touch something, it's sensitive, it's easily hurt.
Yeah.
And so what they do with Daredevil sometimes is annoying. It's like, ooh, they find out he has heightened hearing. They'll play a loud noise and they'll go, oh, that's not true.
Right.
If you put a strong smell in front of a dog, it doesn't faint because it's got the brain to handle that information. It's got, you can't overload Daredevil's senses easier than a normal human's. Matter of fact, it would be harder. But since writers mix up those two definitions of the word sensitive, it's like, ooh, if we throw lots of sound at Daredevil, he won't be able to handle it. It's like, yes, he can. Just like a dog can handle 200 times the smell you can. He wouldn't be able to process all that because his ears are really sensitive in that they can pick up so much more information than ours are. But his ears aren't sensitive in the way that they're easily hurt. And that always annoyed me about them writing Daredevil.
Well, I'm kind of wondering if Frank Miller might be responsible for some of this, because when he brought in Stick, and I think when he did that mini series with John Romita Jr., The Man Without Fear, seems like there was some talk about him having to control some of that. You follow what I'm saying? To not be overwhelmed and overloaded. Seems like, I swear, it really surprised me to find out that a lot of these characters and companies don't make a Bible to hand a writer explaining little things like that.
That's because writers don't care. There's another thing that I have this little paragraph. If you play Bjork, his ears will really hurt.
Yeah.
I have this little paragraph that I paste down every time on social media when people talk about reboots, and the writer's Bible sort of falls into the same ground as that.
Right.
In that whenever you see a comic company do a reboot, it will never hold.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because in order to do a reboot, you need a continuity cop to tell writers they can't do things. And whoever has the job that they're powerful enough to call for a reboot doesn't want to be a continuity cop. So what's going to happen is the guy who's got the power to say we need a reboot and organize everything and get the reboot going, he's done. And now the writers are all who don't care for the reboot. They're going to subvert the reboot because that's what writers do. They're going to find some angle, and no one's going to be. And the guy who had the power to call the reboot, he's not paying attention. He doesn't really care. He got his reboot done. It's done. There's no continuity cop. And if you were to hire a continuity cop, the writers have more power than the continuity cop. Like Peter Sanderson, actually at Marvel and DC, has been a continuity cop at different times in his career.
Right.
But he just makes suggestions. He didn't really have any power. So that's why, and he would write the writer's Bible or whatever, but writers could pay attention to it or not. So even if you do write if you write a Bible, it's only the top guy who has the power who can enforce it, and he's not interested in that sort of day-to-day grind of making comic books.
See, as a reader, as the outsider, all that stuff, to hear things like that, it's just like, it does bring a little bit of anger. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah,
that's the way it works. You're like, I can remember when my one friend who worked at Marvel with me, Thomas Velasquez, started in the bullpen with me. He was in the early 90s, and he was like, when he got to Marvel, he was so disillusioned that he stopped reading comics because he was like, before I got here, I thought there was a master plan. I thought these writers had a master plan for what they were doing with these books.
I mean,
they don't. They got no plan. They're just writing whatever comes up. I'm like, yep.
You hear these stories that pick up, and you probably heard some of the same stories before you got in there at Marvel and stuff, but you hear about them like, we were in a meeting with Byrne and Claremont talking about this. Or I've heard about the famous, or if it's even true now that I'm talking to you, I wonder if like I can even breathe sometimes. But I heard about this famous little like deli or diner on the first floor of the office building that Marvel is in, where people would go down to have lunch, and there was like they would just talk over the food down there for comic book ideas. I mean, these things kind of streamed out, and you're not even sure where you heard them, but
Right.
you hear them enough, you're like, well, I really want to try a sandwich from that place now, you know. But yeah, you start hearing things like, you know who Flo was, but you quite weren't sure how you knew who she was. You know what I mean? Like
the Apollo Diner was the big diner, and the Skylight. Those were the two ones.
Okay.
People would go to. I think they're both still there.
That's what I mean.
They were around for a long time. The Apollo Diner, they're both in Midtown Manhattan. I can't remember the addresses. The Apollo might have been on Park Avenue, and the Skylight was over on like 4th or 3rd.
Yeah.
Someone Google those. Manhattan, New York City Skylight Diner and Apollo Diner. You'll find them.
And I don't usually do this, but if anybody's got anything else they want us to plug, I think we ought to let them like do it. But Scott, if you want to plug your podcast that you're doing, he's got a podcast that he does every now and then. He's pretty proud of, and it's really good. Scott is one of those guys that's real knowledgeable about comics, and I've been like bugging him to start a YouTube channel, and he knows people. He knows Charles Vess. Was it Mike Kaluta? He actually knows people and been to their house, their apartments and stuff up in New York and stuff. Not just like a casual thing, you know. So
Mine the comic says dogs don't complain about human farting. See, they can handle it.
Well, they get more information out of that stuff than we do. Yeah, like,
right up your butt and check it out.
Usually it's you're nasty or something died. With a dog, it's like, oh, ketchup, mustard, nice, you know. So too much dairy, you know. You got too much dairy.
If loud smells hurt dogs, they wouldn't come up and smell your butt.
Nice. All right, we're rolling up on the 10 o'clock time there, and I'm gonna have to jump off here in a little bit.
Yeah, it's almost bedtime. Got a little time to relax before bed.
Okay, he's saying he's just a guest star on that podcast. So plug it away if you want, Scott. You know, this is your chance. No, but that's about it, man. Anybody got you got anything else you want to talk about, Jared, or anything?
No, I think we're coming near the end. Nice.
Here we go. He did it. He finally did it.
Two-dimension podcast. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah. Well, I got to check
about comics.
Yeah, it's about comics, and I think I've listened to like 1.5 of them and stuff. Yeah, and that would explain why if he's just the guest star on it.
I find there are very few podcasts or videos that are actually about comics. Most of the time, they're about movies, tie-ins, or collecting. You know, they're not about reading comics. They're about collecting comics. Matter of fact, I was just working on. I'll have to. It's somewhere around here. I'm coming up with an infographic for the type of comic book collectors there are, where there are sliders, where you're one extreme, another extreme, and we're all somewhere in those extremes. And I was just coming up with the parameters for those sliders. I had to figure out how they interact, but I'll let you know how that comes along. But one of the sliders is comic book collector, comic book reader. And on the comic book collector end, they buy the comic, they put it in plastic, and they never actually read it. And on the reader end is the person who, buys the comic, reads it, and then tosses it over their shoulder, never to bother with it again. And we all land somewhere on that scale.
I would change on that scale. Like I'd be this for a few weeks, but right,
you can. It's a sliding scale.
Yeah.
You can. It's a great. You can. Those are the two extremes, and there's probably hardly any one of those two extremes, but we're all somewhere on that scale. And it's like I'm probably closer to reader, but I don't fling my comics away and never look at them again. I organize them and put them in plastic so I can read them some other day. So
yeah. I'll tell you what, in the last 5 years, I'm not the reader of the new stuff as I used to be. I keep finding myself going back to some older stuff, as I've run across it.
That's another slider.
Yeah.
The other slider is old stuff is better, and I got to keep up with the latest and greatest. So that's another slider. Where do you fall on that slider? And
if I had a trivia contest of the last 5 to 10 years of comics, I'm going to get mutilated. You know what I mean? But you go from 2010 back, I might be able to hang in there, and I have no problem with this. You know what I mean? I don't feel like a lot of people actually read their books here.
Oh yeah, all the trivia I know is on comics that me and 6,000 other people read.
There you go. Yeah, well, you got a niche. We'd be a team. We'd have all the categories covered. We just won't tell anybody, comic book people in real life, like in case that comes up.
There are some times that I'm amazed that, like, I'm out to lunch with my friend Ed, who, like I said, he's an artist. I went to undergrad with him. I worked at Marvel with him. I've known him since we met in 1986. So, and he knows his comic book fan, but he can't answer anything recent. But, and Bob Wyachek is out to lunch with us. And Bob and Ed start talking about, like, inkers who inked these, one issue of something in the early 70s. And they're like, oh, yeah, I know exact page you're talking about. It's the one with Ralph Reese inked over there. And I'm just like, how the heck do you guys know this stuff? I don't know. It's like, I'm like, oh yeah, that one from like 1974 where he inked a story in some anthology book from DC. And I'm just like, what?
The Commander Benson guy I was telling you about, he and his bunch, they are Silver Age experts. And I'm not just talking about experts. They do what you're talking about from 1958. And they say that the Silver Age actually ended when Snapper Carr turned on the Justice League, not when Gwen Stacy died. Right. So they do these things where I've seen the message boards where they're sitting there saying they come up with a name, and it turns out it's a secretary that popped up in this book in 1959 on page 3. I mean, I was just like, I don't know shit. I'm like,
I remember talking to there was an editor there, Mort Todd. He edited the Marvel music books, and he was a real rock and roll guy too. But he was an expert in, like, the monster books from the 50s and 60s. And he could reel off chapter and verse and who drew what and inked what. And I was just like,
on the same message board, comicboards.com, a guy named Kev up in Canada who was a music teacher with mahogany. I think it was cedar. He had customized cedar drawers for his books, and that's what he did. What you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Unreal. Yeah.
That's like have you ever read, once again, this is early 2000 to 2010. I was collecting a bunch of the Marvel Atlas Age archive masterworks.
I know what you're talking about.
No one else wanted them. But one of my favorite things about them is there's some dentist in Manhattan who writes all the intros to them, because he has spent a lot of time researching the artists from the Atlas era of Marvel. So he goes through all this research, tells you, oh, we think this guy drew this one, this guy's this guy, this. I'm just like, wow, that's fascinating. I just find that stuff fascinating because it's like, who else? I'm like, I like the intros as much as the comics.
Yeah. Yeah. On a lot of things here. And I might actually have something to show here in a minute. Make sure I'm talking about the right guy here. Yeah, it's him. But you know who William Stout is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's kind of goes what you're talking about, these guys being fans of things and stuff like that. This is from like, I don't know, 1971 or 2 or something. It's
Marvel 10th anniversary covers.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, but anyway, William Stout has a letter in one of these, a fan letter. I took a picture of it and was like, that's got to be it's the same dude.
By the way,
I love finding, that's why I look in the letters column. I found tons of Kurt Busiek letters and stuff in the 70s and stuff like that. And that kind of goes with what you're talking about, the intro and people being experts on that sliding scale. You know, you got William Stout sitting there like, you know, hardcore into Conan and fantasy, writing into them, you know.
By the way, I always point out the Marvel 10th anniversary covers because as far as I know, I'm the only one who knows it. Those covers that are in squares, they did that to celebrate Marvel's 10th anniversary. I got that right from John Romita's mouth. I asked him one day. And as far as I know, I've never heard anyone else.
No, that's first I've heard of it.
And I always say it like in my and occasionally people ask me about it, but I'm like,
didn't you say that in a video?
I'm the only source for that knowledge, and I'm like, and I've never heard, and I've always heard people comment on them. Oh, I like the box. Oh, I don't like the box. But I've never heard anyone ask, why did Marvel do that box? So I actually asked John Romita that, and he was like, it was for the 10th anniversary of something, and he couldn't remember what it was for the 10th anniversary of it. He's like, it had to be Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four because that was the right time frame. But that's why I always call them Marvel 10th anniversary covers, just to let people know, because I've never read that, and as long as I've been a comics fan and read about the history of comics, I've never read that anywhere.
Well, I've watched YouTube a long time, and it seems like I do remember you mentioned it in a previous video.
I have mentioned it before, yeah.
But
because I mention it as often as I can, just because no one knows it.
It's one of those things. I think I probably had you playing in the background while I was doing stuff. But no, man, and now we're back. We're back to like the Eternals and stuff, man. Nobody knew this. I don't want to see videos popping up. I want to bust them. You know.
I always see people collecting those Marvel 25th anniversary covers that had the frame on them for a month.
I'm one of those people. Yeah.
But nobody knows that those 10th anniversary covers are 10th anniversary covers.
No, I don't know. So what I'm picturing is somebody's going to make a video where they claim they knew, and I'm going to call you up, be like, no,
unless John Romita told them, no one knows.
Or a bunch of us end up on some kind of online trivia contest, and they make a mistake on a Walt Simonson book, and I'm going to be like, get him on speaker, Jared. You know, let's do our Woody Allen moment. It's Annie Hall time. You know,
we'll have to see if he can do a show with us some night, because I noticed he's been doing a lot of these video shows.
Oh, you know, I talked to him on comic boards, the same one I'm talking about back in the day. He answered a few questions. I know exactly how that's going to go with me. It's going to be yes, sir, and like, wow, you know.
And Walt can talk.
Yeah, that's what's going to be cool about it. He's going to be able to talk. I'll pull up a few things. But, I mean, he's got a character from X Factor number 36 that nobody remembers about, and her power was to give people viruses and stuff. And I'd probably go like, you know, that's the kind of stupid shit I'd come up with.
You know what power I've been thinking about lately, and I actually mentioned it on Facebook a few weeks ago, that I think is a cool power, would make a cool kind of real world power that would make is Ghost Girl from the Crusaders in the Invaders.
I know who you're talking about. I have to look her up, but yeah, I've got those on the top shelf. I know. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah,
she has the power to appear to be 3 meters, and then they always have to explain what 3 meters is away from where. So it's kind of like de facto invisibility, where someone thinks I'm sitting in this chair, but I'm really back on the couch. Imagine fighting with that power. The other person wouldn't have a chance. They wouldn't have any idea where you were.
Well, for you guys that are Snake Plissken fans, if you watch the end of Escape from LA, he has a little machine that allows him to do that. It throws a hologram out like that. I didn't realize you went obscure on me. I've got those Invaders books on the top shelf. I almost dove over there when you said
I don't know why she came into my head recently, but I'm thinking of it, like, you know, a John Wick character with Ghost Girl powers would be like cool. Unstoppable.
One of the characters that pops up in my head every now and then was Mr. Immortal from the Great Lakes Avengers when Byrne first introduced him. I thought he was like, I'm like, there's a lot of potential here. It feels like he's just kind of been wasted over the years. he dies and keeps coming back. I'm like, that was like 1990. You know, we've had I can go on. We had Resurrection Man and all that stuff since then.
All right, we better wrap it up then. It's getting in on 10 o'clock.
Well, if Walt Simonson comes on here, you guys really need to hit the bell, you know. So,
I'll see if I can get him on.
That's cool. All right, guys. Catch y'all later. Thanks everybody for popping in. Later, guys.
Have a good one.